All right, so
Okay, here we go.
in our last, I think it was our last one, quite a few people wanted to understand a little bit more about, okay, we have a property, now what do we do with it? How do we get tenants in there? How do we deal with tenants and whatnot? So we brought the guru in today. So on all of our properties, Brooke is the one that essentially finds the tenants, vets them, and gets all the paperwork done. And then after that, I'm not sure who gets the short end of the stick on this. After that, I get to deal with whatever crap comes up after. So sometimes literally it's crap. So we thought maybe we could just talk through some of the processes that Brooke uses to find the tenants and vet them, because we've actually had really good luck with the tenants that we brought in. They've been pretty low maintenance for the most part, and their bills, which is pretty important too. So, Brooke, maybe you just want to start off and talk about how, like, where you advertise and any little tips that maybe you can give everyone on tricks you do to find out whether they're potentially good tenants or not right out of the gate.
So way back when it was just Jason and I was like solely Craigslist. And so that's where I would put rental properties. I haven't done that for years and years, and pretty much solely rely on Zillow right now. I've tried Facebook, and it seems like the creeps come out of the woodwork on there. So I don't know what it is, but that just has not worked for us at all. So yeah, it's pretty much going on to Zillow, and then Zillow broadcasts to Hot Pads, Trulia, and there might be one other that they broadcast to. So that's just, it kind of gives me a landing page too, just to get questions, see who's coming through. And then from there, when I do have inquiry come in, then my response to everyone is just kind of a cut and paste. Please text me, and I put my cell phone number, with your email address, and then I'll send you the qualifications for the house. And from there, if those look good, we can coordinate a showing. And then if they can follow that rule, and so if I get a text from them, it already shows, okay, well, they've taken the first initiative. So right there, it weeds people out. So I'll have people, I do put right in there as well that because of the large amount of calls, that please text versus calling, just because I don't want to, with the current real estate job, I want to have the rental questions coming in as well. So, so everything is pretty much done through the Zillow system or by text.
So I think let's just hit on that really quickly, because how much time do you think, Brooke, it has saved you by asking them to take one step to see if they can follow directions? How many, what percentage do you think that weeds out, and how much time, it's probably hard to quantify, but how much time do you think that saves you with just crap applicants?
Well, and so you always get people that are, yes, I'm interested, I want to see it, and then you get it to the house, and it's like, I may be looking for a tenant that I want to move in March, and they're looking for in October. I mean, it's like we are totally wasting our time. So just being able to start that communication by text, and then I can ask them before we schedule a showing, are you looking to move in? Just a little bit of information on them as well. So I can't even quantify probably how much time it saved me, because I would run the house and show people, and it just.
We get some chuckles every once in a while, I think. On one of them, it had to be 90% of the people that responded to the ad couldn't follow the first set of instructions. Think about that. How hard is it? So.
And then we've made a decision not to do Section 8, and Zillow will no longer allow you. They have like a friendly neighborhood or a friendly neighbor policy now, so they no longer will let me put no Section 8. So you've got some of that weeding out that you need to do as well.
So yeah, we get a chuckle all the time. Just with the responses, people can't follow the instructions, and it really does save a ton of time just having them take that first step if they can.
question. So did they call you first, email you first? What?
Nope, so it comes in through the Zillow
Okay.
system.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it,
Yes,
but
yes,
okay.
so you get like a portal. And
Gotcha.
it's just kind of your landing page to kind of have everything in one spot.
Okay.
And so then I reply to them through the
Gotcha,
Zillow
through
system.
Zillow, okay.
Yes. And I give them my cell phone number, and then if I see a text come through on my mobile, I know that they've kind of passed the first test.
Gotcha.
So, okay, so we have the people who come in, they follow the first step. They text you and you get their email address, and then you send out the rental qualifications. So how does that interaction go from there, Brooke?
Yeah, so from there, typically they'll either respond, like reply to the email, if they have questions or want to ask me something, otherwise I'll get a text back. Qualifications look good, yes, I'd like to schedule a showing.
So second hurdle we have to get over, right? Look at the qualifications. Do you qualify? And then you get past that, now we're at the point of either hosting an open house or showing of the property. So what's your?
Are you taking their word that they meet those qualifications at this point?
At this
Okay,
point,
okay.
Yep. But I mean, we're pretty straight up with them. If you're
Well, you're
nowhere near the
gonna look
ballpark,
at credit and
yeah,
everything.
don't bother.
Yeah.
Like, we're checking all this, so
Right.
if it doesn't work, don't bother.
Yep.
Preference on how you do that, Brooke? Do you open houses or private showings?
Yeah, so I kind of, again, have played around with different ways. I think the best way is just putting an open house out there and then telling people we're gonna have it open from 1 to 2 on Sunday. And then I will have people come in, and if I can really, if I can tell that they have strong interest, then it might be, well, hey, could you show it to me on Saturday? I'm a professional in Minneapolis and looking to move in as soon as possible or something like that. So then I might make accommodations to get them in sooner if I can get like a good vibe that they're gonna be potentially a good tenant.
Yep.
So a lot of times I won't even end up doing the open house because I'll be able to even kind of vet people that way.
So what's your feeling on having someone host the open house for you or show the property for you versus you doing it, obviously?
Yeah.
Leveraging time can be nice. What are your thoughts on that?
And I would love to be able to just send somebody else in there, get applications, and then we're done with it. But there's definitely something with that face-to-face and getting a vibe for people. So I prefer to do that open house myself. So I've kind of limited it to an hour usually. And then again, you're gonna get the best candidates coming through at the beginning. And I'll usually have a text chain from anybody that I anticipate is gonna come through. So a lot of times, if the first person gives me an application, I can text everybody else that had raised their hand that they're coming, and then just let them know, hey, I have an application in hand. If you wanna still come through, it's up to you, but I just wanna let you know that we have sent an application.
So meeting them is nice
Mhm.
because you get a feel. We've all got, we're good, right? We're pretty good at reading people. It's what we do for a living, so.
Yeah, the last one that I had somebody come in, didn't take their shoes off, just kind of walked through. The next couple that came in, they took their shoes off outside, like left the shoes outside, came in, just very respectful. So you can just get a vibe.
And that's
Little
why,
things like that.
that's why we have Brooke do it instead of me. Shoe thing wouldn't have. Okay, so we've met them, you've got a pretty good feel, so you take applications right there, or like, what do you,
So that
how do you
too,
do that?
I have applications with me, so if I get a really good vibe, I encourage them to fill it out there with me. Kind of have that, I don't know about this, then I'll encourage them to take it and get it back to me, and then hopefully in the meantime, somebody else will come through, and so, yeah.
Are you using Zillow's application
No.
or you have your own?
We use Tenant Check of
Yeah.
Minnesota, so then they have their own form.
What's it called?
Tenant Check of Minnesota. And they say it's about 48 hours. I think they even say maybe up to 72 hours turnaround, but they're really good unless it falls on a weekend, getting it back to me the next day.
All right, so we've got an application, we send it through Tenant Check, and that's gonna get us what? What do we receive in that process?
Yep, so then, again, we use the tenant check application, so that gives us information, kind of background, their social security. They have to sign that form. I send it in then to tenant check. I do have them fill out a hard copy and like wet sign it, because then that gives me access to their credit number or their social security number, versus if they fill it out through tenant check's online portal, I never see the information that they're providing to tenant check. So I like the idea of having that, being able to retain the information that they're giving me, and it also gives, employment and that kind of information. So I do just do that as a hard copy.
Right, so we get their credit report, so to speak. It's pretty in-depth. Like it shows, criminal
Yeah.
check, of course, which is most important. But like the last one we had a gentleman that his credit score was just outside of our parameters on the low side. And seemed like everything else seemed to be in order, so we looked and it was, what was it, like $100 medical something from like 6 years ago or something. So like we looked at it and thought, well, why like looking at this person's income and their debt load, because it shows everything, right? All their payments, whatever their revolving balance is on their credit cards, vehicle loans, it shows everything. So you just look at it and you kind of, well, they tally it up for you actually, what their monthly payments are. And it just didn't make sense. So this person was in a profession where they moved quite a bit. So our guess was that somewhere along the line, forwarding address didn't get updated. And this thing had just been, because who wouldn't pay $100, right? If you make enough money, why wouldn't you just pay it? So we went back and forth on that a little bit. And we're like, well, everything else seems really good. So we kind of concluded that it had to be more of a mishap or an erroneous situation that it dinged his credit. And it was really recent, I think, that it had shown up.
Yeah,
So,
we had this guy's whole story. We knew everything about him, and
I told, when Brooke went to meet him, I said, well, he's gonna show up in a Dodge half-ton, and he just bought it. Sure enough.
We knew that he was probably going through a breakup.
Oh, yeah, we knew everything, yeah.
Like, because he wanted to sign right now
Yeah.
and.
Yeah, this guy was really interesting. So
Sleep.
he wanted to move in like today. And then all of a sudden, nope, it was hang on, maybe. And then the next day, he's like, no, I need to move in today. So he told Brooke, he's like, yeah, I was living with my girlfriend, it just wasn't going well. And then we thought we could work it out, and it wasn't gonna work out. So anyways, so yeah, we are pretty strict on those, the requirements for screening. But sometimes you just have to think, right? You've got to dig a little bit deeper to figure out what's really going on. I don't know, he showed up with money and he hasn't paid his second month's rent yet, so we'll see if we made the right decision. But it's not late yet either. He seemed like a really good guy. Brooke met him and he's just happy as a pig in mud. He said this is gonna work perfectly.
I've also added an addendum onto our lease that if they work with us as realtors, that we will be flexible with their move out as well. And so this guy fully intends on purchasing, he just timing and needs to work on his credit a little bit.
Yep.
And so we'll probably end up getting him as a buyer on the road too.
Yep. So the other thing on that one, we're actually gonna sell that house. And the day before I went on market, we looked at each other and said, why are we selling this? We bought it as a flip. And we said, why are we selling this? So now that we fix it, it's pretty nice.
And I think only a single family.
Yeah, it was like the only single family house at all. So decided, okay, we won't put it on the market, let's just advertise it for rent for a week, and see we'll see if we can get our number on it. Because we're not really familiar with the Hastings rental market, so thought, well, if we can get X, it'll totally make sense. And man, I think we had 5 or 6 people reach out almost immediately when it hit Zillow. Breakup guy being one of them. So what was interesting on that one, we kind of stumbled into this, is we had it set up to go on the market. So we had photos and we had Matterport. Sign in the yard. Yeah, did we get that removed?
Coming soon.
What's that?
Coming soon.
No, it wasn't coming soon. But we had Matterport on it.
Yeah.
So then we used Matterport as part of our advertising for the rental. And this guy had never walked through the property, but he utilized the Matterport. So that was kind of nice, and I think it probably screens people a little bit too.
Yeah, I would say we learned something after every single experience, and so that was something that definitely came out of this last one was, why don't we just report everything so that people can have that virtual walkthrough?
Yep, and some of the lessons are maybe a little easier than others. This one was an easy lesson. So anyways, just a thought there too, if you guys do have something you come across.
And Zillow will allow you to do the video tour as well, so people can do that even before they reach out.
So maybe another lesson that we've recently learned that we need to sharpen up on is Brooke has a really nice move-in walkthrough checklist. But what we don't have is my checklist before we get to the move-in walkthrough. Make sure we've got garage openers, extra keys made, all that stuff. This one, rental licenses. This one, we had no intention of renting, so we were kind of behind the 8 ball on some of this stuff. Running around trying to make copies of keys.
I was trying to figure out who to call for utilities, and it's like, oh my God, we need a license.
Yeah, that would, we accidentally came across that. So I had gone down to the property just to finish getting everything wrapped up, spare keys and whatnot. I walk in the front door and I said, well, this isn't exactly what I said, but you can imagine what I said when I walked through the front door and it was 45 degrees in there.
Oh, no.
So got the poor guy getting kicked out of his girlfriend's house, and I've got a furnace that's not working, and he's supposed to be moving in the next morning. So just things like that, I think we're gonna work on a little bit better system on that to make sure that we've got the properties ready to go. We're really good at getting them fixed and utilizing our contractors and whatnot, but we've got to get to that next step. And it's simple things, but it's just a checklist. Everybody knows you're running around doing 100 things and you forget. You just forget. So we've got the move-in checklist, basically walk through, identify any damage in the property, anything that they want to note that is there before they move in. First month's rent and security deposit before they get keys. So they do not get keys until we get all the money.
Do you really collect the $50 fee for applications?
So I do that right at the time of running the application.
Yep.
And I'll usually just send them like a Venmo. Yeah.
So if they go right through Zillow to fill out the application, Zillow charges the fee, right?
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
And it looked bad because I had a $45 fee on there, instructions, but we do it online through Zillow, it's $29.
Yeah, I think it's like 35 for tenant check, but then like if they're out of state, they can also hold the information. So like, let's say they lived in California for 4 years, then tenant check can do like an extra check, and so then it can raise the price. So yeah, again, most of them are $35, but it has been upwards $55 sometimes, depending on how many states they lived in.
Do you reimburse them, the person that you choose to, for your rental, to reimburse them the fee for the application?
No,
I've heard that some.
no, yeah, so it's right up front that there's a $50 fee per adult.
They have to pay for it, so.
And I've never
Yeah,
had
we had there was
anybody.
one that reimbursed if they ended up renting.
Yeah, that, and the market's so,
Yeah,
the
right,
demand's so high, it's like, why give the money back?
right.
And it's kind of one more thing to track.
Maybe they were just being nice.
Yeah, probably, yeah. Steve, did you-
Is a damage deposit 1 month's rent or? Okay.
Yeah, if they don't have that chunk of change right up front, they're never gonna have it. I'm getting it, I'll have it Monday, well, that's fine. But you're not gonna move in until Monday.
What kind of credit score do you want them to have for different properties? Or is it change for the different properties you have?
I think
Oh,
it's
620.
620, yeah.
What, 620?
620.
Tell our kids can move out.
Other thoughts, questions?
They can move out?
This process is really, we've been, knock on wood, pretty lucky.
Have you had any state testers come in, any to your opens or tested you on your rental
I did
from the
have,
Commerce Department?
I know, but I had some hoarders that were living in a duplex that Jason and I have in Richfield. And so I got to know that city inspector really well, and she was like, oh, great, yeah, it's like I think it's 2 times, or every 2 years you have to have the city
Oh,
inspector come
license
in.
or something.
So it was just kind of inside joke.
I was just thinking from the Commerce Department, because I know, I know years ago when it had, we had 50-some applicants all the time but they were out testing pretty heavy back then.
And I am really good about, I always say the same thing to everybody, so, I mean, if they
But
want.
I think it helps too with your doing that pre-screening
Yeah.
and just having them do that kind of stuff too.
Do you allow month-to-month rentals at the end of the 1-year lease or?
We do, but what we wrote into the lease is if it does lapse into month to month, it jumps up dramatically.
The cost of the rent?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, because otherwise, especially, you've got to be really careful on your timing. Because we had one in Prior Lake, really nice place, we couldn't get it rented because we were trying to rent it in December. It's a bad time. So, you don't want to be in that prime window, you don't want to be April to July with your turnover time frame and have somebody month you into December and decide, oh, I'm out of here. And then you get told in the bag trying to rent the property, at the worst time of the year to rent the property. So we want to control that timing as best we can. We've got 6 leases, or 6 plus, we've got 6 month-to-month leases right now. And we're just strategically working through that to time it so that, number 1, we get turnover when we want it, and number 2, we renew those leases so that they all start falling in the prime rental season. Because we know we're under market rent at that property. So whatever turnover we get, we want to clean them up, bump the rent up, and make sure that we get that cycle started at the time of the year that we want it to be.
Where do you go to see if you're competitive for rentals prices? Is that like apartments.com or what do you guys use?
So we do have an account at Rental Meter,
Rental what?
Rental Meter.
Oh, rental.
Yep, and so then you can put in bedrooms, bathrooms, address, and then it'll tell you what the going rate is for the area.
That's been good.
That was a lot.
Zillow too.
Craigslist is
Yeah.
pretty good actually, because you can look on there and see if the listing has been renewed a bunch of times. And if it has, it's probably because of price. Mostly just like a house, right? If it's not selling, it's just not priced right.
The nice thing about Zillow too is they now charge, $10 a week, or,
Yep, $10 a week.
so that kind of weeds out like, when you're looking at competition, I mean,
Yep.
only serious people are gonna pay $10 a week to have their property listed on there.
And then it's been, it's been a little bit of trial and error too, just because the market is changing so much. Like we've got one that's coming up in Richfield and we just jacked it up last go around and we'll jack it up again and see what happens. So, I don't know.
And even when the tenants stay there?
No, these people are moving.
Yeah.
But
I never dreamed.
we are raising on every single one. Because you end up falling behind.
Oh, yeah. And you don't have to replace it, but then you don't have to replace any carpet or anything.
Probably
Yeah.
the biggest mistake I made was signing, I thought at the time, long-term leases, like 3 of ours, they wanted 3 to 4 year leases. And I'm like, yes, I don't have to do carpet. But the difference of what I could collect today versus what they locked in at 3 years ago is substantial. So I'm trying to motivate them all to break the lease and move.
So, yeah, some of it's a little bit of trial and error, Steve, just see what the market will bear.
So
We overshot on a couple given time of year and we had to reduce it. We just reduced it until we got somebody.
So like Brooke was mentioning, you got a 2-year city inspection that you have to adhere to. Use that as an opportunity to look at the condition of the property and then maybe look at going, well, it's like Scotty's mentioning, even though I might have you on a year to year, whatever, or maybe it's 2 years, whatever. But you get an opportunity to see if you can bump it up because you see the deterioration of the property, first of all, might be a concern. And then the current rent rates that you got going on in that particular area has increased. I don't know, how do you guys utilize that?
Yeah, I mean, that's an opportunity, absolutely. Frankly, there's something that we're into a property or one of our contractors is into a property for once a year. It just, something comes up once a year on a property. So, I can't say I've personally been in the majority of our properties for I don't know how long, but somebody has been in there. So whenever we've got a trusted contractor that goes in, they know, just to let us know what things are looking like. Should we be more diligent on that? Maybe we should. At the end of the day, if there's actual destruction that's going on, that's nothing more than a police report and an insurance claim. Because if you have the proper rental coverage, if someone trashes a property, that's covered. That's covered. So you have to make sure you don't have a residential, as in Steve, living in the property policy. It's got to be a rental policy. Because then you're covered for that kind of stuff. So I'm never really worried about someone destroying the property because I'm covered for it. Wear and tear, yeah, I know that's going to happen. And then move out, I mean, if it's there and it's beyond wear and tear, we've got the security deposit, and if it exceeds that, if it makes sense, we can always make a claim if it's actual damage to the property. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. What's the, an average incurred cost that you guys have on some of these 1-year leases? Like, do you have so that like the damage or in order to get it ready for the next renter, does it make sense to actually do like home warranty? Or you guys have better contractors where you get better prices and you don't really see the need to have this all encompassing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I haven't done the warranty thing.
I think relationship with vendors is huge,
that
so you
helps a
kind
lot.
of lose that relationship.
I think, so with the warranty, I mean, the majority, unless you're paying significant premiums, basically you've got your standard appliances and your HVAC and your water heater covered, right? So when we put a property into the rental pool, most of that stuff has been done. Like, it's all new. So our intention is to go in with a property that's turnkey, so that we shouldn't have to worry about maintenance issues for quite a period of time. Will there be some turnover, Steve, that costs more? Sure, absolutely. You're gonna get 5, 7 years in and you've got to do carpet, then you got to do carpet. What's our standard turn? The last one we did in Richfield, I think it cost us $250 for a paint touch-up. You know, that was pretty inexpensive.
Both of those things are not even covered under full home warranty. So
No,
Right.
no.
that would be in addition to that, so that's a
Exactly.
good point.
Yep. I've always been one, just when we, like I said, when we put it in the rental pool, let's make sure it's as right as possible. Everything down to get the sewer line cleaned. And I just got burned on that $1,000 bill because I didn't get the sewer line cleaned. And back up when you do carpet.
I have one.
It's 4 years in, so the carpet needs to be done anyway, so it's not that big a deal, but lesson learned, right? Just another thing on the checklist, the move-in checklist, or we just started a new rental checklist.
I had one property, I have a property that has over it's about a 20-year-old furnace in it. And I asked them on their gas bill, that if they put Service Plus on there, the minimum coverage, just to cover the furnace if it went out in the middle of the night, I wasn't even worried about if I had to replace it. I didn't want to call in the middle of the night that the furnace went out. And so I gave them, it was $14. I took $14 off their monthly rent because they kept Service Plus on. So that's another way to kind of do for minimal things. You know, there's like one thing that, you know, and that furnace, and that was 10 years ago. That furnace is still there.
Yeah, and you know, the other thing is,
I just have my furnace guy go and check it, and he just have him check them every year. And that's get your contractors in there to check them for you, the furnaces, and make sure that they're up, the CO is safe and everything.
and trustworthy contractors.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a guy that's he is just unbelievable. The guy is awesome. He bailed us out, well, we had a run like 2 weeks ago.
When it rains, it pours.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago, when it was really cold there, I think we had 4 furnaces in a span of 5 days. And I just called, like, hey, Patrick, hi, what have you got for me today? You know, by the last one, I was like, dude, I appreciate what you're doing here, but I don't want to talk to you anymore. It's like, it doesn't suck for me. But, you know, he's really good. He goes and looks at it. I had one, and I had to meet him there because the tenant wasn't available to. And they were literally in and out in 5 minutes. He said, yeah, I know what it is. And he had one little thing that he did, and boom, everything's working perfectly. He said, this thing is awesome. He said, don't touch it. So that's his response to me all the time. No, this is great. We had 2 blower motors go out, replaced it, and he said, you're good. So I cleaned everything up. Everything's good to go. Don't worry about it. So even those older furnaces, if you maintain them, those things will last.
Yeah.
Pilot light ones,
Yep, they'll last. It's a matter of maintaining
I
them.
put a new blower in, motor in, $500, and you know, but it should be $5,000 for a furnace.
Well, that leads to my question, you know, if you maintain them, they'll last, right? So how do you handle that maintenance? Like, do you have it in your lease that says that they will keep the water softener filled with salt, that they will change the furnace filter?
I actually make an initial next to that addendum.
And it's their cost, right? They'll
Yeah.
buy the filters and the
Well,
salt.
I mean, we have dropped off some filters. We don't really have a protocol for that.
We probably shouldn't have done that. That lady, she thinks she lives in an all-inclusive resort.
With one
Oh, bit of a
diva.
drunk. Yeah, she's a victim of the capital B now. But even that, you know, they can initial all they want. Whether they do it or not is a different story.
Yeah.
Buy the cheap filters, the furnace filters, the cheapest crap you can
$512
get.
a month.
You should be able to blow through it and feel the air on the other side.
And I do go through that in our walkthrough. I like show them how to change the furnace filter and to buy the cheap ones versus the expensive ones and remind them that'll help with your cost as well.
Change it once a month, and you make out your bill.
Do you allow pets at all?
Dogs are okay. Cats,
We have one cat.
service cat.
I love your eye roll.
They actually do less
That was-
damage than children.
That was my friend's a doctor and wrote me a letter, service cat. I don't know.
That's awesome.
I didn't know about that when I walked in to deal with something at that property. I was in the neighborhood, so I just stopped by and I walked in. I was like, cat, how did you let this one sneak by, Brooke? I mentioned it to her. She said, oh yeah, it's a service cat. We didn't have any
Yeah,
choice. You can't, right? You can't do anything about it. But dogs were okay
We do
with,
a non-refundable pet deposit
Yep.
of $250 that they just don't give back.
Is there an additional amount, monthly amount that you add because of the pet? No.
we probably could. if we
Some people
wanted.
do, but
I have a $325 to have the ductwork cleaned, fee, and then I have an extra $500 damage deposit that I'll return if there's no damage.
How much for ductwork? 3?
$325.
But yeah, no cats. I want nothing to do with cats.
We did have it pop up recently where they have like a German Shepherd
Yeah, it was a weird mix.
husky or
Yeah,
something.
it was like about as close to a wolf as you could get.
And we called our insurance agent. He's like, I don't know. My daughter was bit by a German Shepherd a few months ago as well, so it just kind of, we didn't end up making it.
Yeah, and they were both. Yeah, but I don't think they ever submitted an application.
Well, they were kind of waiting.
They were waiting on our,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's another thing I do is I kind of I make Colin the bad guy. Like, oh, I need to get it approved by my partner.
Okay.
It's not me.
I'm the partner all the time.
The decision maker.
What else have we run into? I think those checklists.
Yeah, on properties that Jason and I have, I do have our handyman go in and do kind of like a spring cleanup. And then he'll also put on like the freezer, the exterior freezer.
The frost-free
Frost,
spigots, or the covers on it, yeah.
And just check on smoke detectors, check on, just making sure that filters are there and looks like they've been being changed and things like that.
I
The
like
other thing
stainless-
is frost-free spigots before you put it into the rental pool. Just get your plumber out there and just get it done.
Kind of go through those checklists, just like the cities have, even if they don't require, if it's a city that doesn't require them, just that they smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, just a safety check.
What else, any other questions?
where do you get the verbiage for your leases?
So I use, it's called eforms.com. And so I think it is like a yearly subscription, but then they stay on top of like all of the legal verbiage that you have to have in the Minnesota lease. So, and then we have an addendum that I just add. You're able to, at the very end, pull it out into a Word document so that I can easily tweak it as I need them. And I know everything that's legal.
You don't just use you don't use the MLS ones and then,
No.
crime-free addendum with them,
We do have a crime-free and drug-free.
drug-free comment.
I think Tenant Check
The addendum is-
has it too.
The addendum is just that School of Hard Knocks, is what that one is.
Tenant Check, I think also, and Turbo Tenant, they have standard leases that you can use. That kind of tripped me up in the beginning until, you can Google and just Minnesota standard lease and find it. But that was intimidating at first to know.
Well, the nice thing
What
about.
to use,
Yeah, and the nice thing about eForms is it's kind of like a question. So it prompts you for how many tenants, what are their names, and it's just like next, next, next. So you're not having to go through and like do a word. It's just super easy, and then it just populates everything and then gives you,
worry about missing something.
right.
Is that for Minnesota only, or is that a?
No, so
By
if
state.
you go in there, it'll say like, what is your state, and there's a drop down.
Yeah, that's been really cool. That's worked really nicely.
What's it called again? eForms.com. and they have everything. So if in the event that you need to do like eviction or any forms that you need, if you're giving notice of having them move out, anything like that, find that on that.
Minnesota Multi-Housing Association also has a big packet of forms with all the different forms that they use. Multi-Housing Association. They have really good stuff on evictions and different things.
So during COVID, how did you guys kind of navigate that process? I mean, renters have rights, right? And then all of a sudden you have this big dilemma that's going on where maybe people have hardships now they're not paying. And you might have to look to invoke that eviction or start that eviction process. Like, how did you guys navigate that? Like, how do you
Couldn't
navigate
during
an
COVID.
eviction where it comes from? Like, they're not paying.
I'll tell
2
you
months or 3
exactly
months.
what we did, Steve. The first of every month, we held our breath. Seriously, we had no idea what to expect. And we held our breath. And the first month, every single payment came in right on time. And we looked at each other and said, oh, all right. And the next month, every single payment came in right on time. And that happened every single month.
What the hell?
We didn't have,
That's awesome.
we didn't have a single issue. And if you listen to any like the big rental guy podcasts, like Cardone and all those guys, most well-run entities, they hardly had any issues whatsoever.
I think your point is excellent, because my less than well-run entity had a tenant who was behind in rent already, and she did not pay through
That was
COVID.
just
And we
an
lost about
excuse then, right?
$20,000. Yeah, it was just an excuse. But it was because we weren't well-run. We let her fall behind.
Yeah, so,
Well, the moratorium eliminated any option of being able to evict them
Right.
until the Supreme Court proved that that was not
Exactly.
constitutional.
And that kind of leads me to, well, first of all, you guys must have a great process on the front end, okay? But then you still, if.
There was a
Don't give
program,
them an inch or they'll take a mile.
Yeah.
That's my
That's
philosophy.
what I saw that as like,
5 days.
what was happening is that, people took opportunities that
Mm-hmm.
they normally wouldn't miss payments, but then they're like, everybody else is doing it.
yeah,
Save my
I
money.
don't think people did it so much on the rental side as they did on the homeowner side.
I
Because
agree.
the renters had protection, and if you had a mortgage, you actually could do the forbearance that the government allowed you to do, or the lenders. I have had lots of clients that did not pay their mortgage for several months because they knew they could add it to the end, and then they could sell or refinance later.
so the other thing is there were so many opportunities for government assistance for people that really there was no reason for someone not to pay. So we had during that time that we steered someone in that direction. Is there somebody that?
Have you had, because they pay in lump sum. I just had a renter
Well, we've
applied
got
for
one
that.
right now. Has nothing to do with COVID.
She applied for whatever that grant program is that gives homeowners assistance from the pandemic. And all of a sudden I got a check for 4 months rent
Yep.
from that entity. I'm like,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, the problem is when it starts becoming a recurring thing, because we had that scenario, 3 months was paid and we were made whole. And guess when that ran out? Well, it ran out January 31st. And guess who's still just down on their luck? So you gotta be a little bit careful with that. So that's our first one that we've struggled with, but it's not from COVID, Steve, it's just, it's,
Fair enough. But so it seems like you guys have.
and that was an inheritance, yes, that was not our tenant, they came with the property.
You guys have such a good business plan as far as right now, it appears right now. So I'm just curious as to, is this part of your business plan too as well, to consider on each property, you got a little money that you stash back in case somebody does miss, 2 or 3 payments, or at least 1 payment? And do you look at it as like for your whole portfolio? you know, in case you have a disaster like that comes up now that you've seen COVID happen going forward, did you guys modify that business plan at that point in time?
No, well, no, we haven't, because, Steve, we didn't need to, because everyone's probably heard me say every property we've got, we make sure there's $5,000 sitting in that account
Okay, so
when
that's,
we put it into the rental pool. Because something's gonna happen, right?
That's
It just,
what I'm
it's
getting
going to. Every property we put into the rental pool, even if we've totally redone it, the first 2 months are an absolute nightmare. My phone doesn't stop ringing because there's just little things, because nobody's lived in that property yet. So we always have kinks to work through.
every new home or
Every
couple
new,
come through has a new load on that property.
no,
You know what I
the
mean?
first time that we put it into the rental pool, that first couple of months, I'm inundated. It's something, and it's stupid stuff, right? It's like, how in the world did that happen? And it's just little things that nobody's been in the property for a while, and the dishwasher wasn't installed correctly. They forgot to open up the knockout on the garbage disposal. You know, just stupid things that, just little oversights. So we always make sure we've got reserves, and then we don't utilize that cash flow for our daily lives. That stays in the companies. So when COVID hit, I don't know about Brooke, but I slept like a baby because we had the reserves there.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah,
So
we
you
hadn't
did have
drawn
money
on
that you-
Yeah, we hadn't drawn on it, so we weren't in a leveraged position, so to speak. If they didn't pay, I mean, I wasn't gonna be happy about it, but I wasn't gonna be concerned about how the rent was gonna get, or the mortgage was gonna get paid either.
Right.
So we start out with a balance, and we don't touch it.
Do you have separate accounts for each property that you own?
Each company, each holding company.
And how many properties are in each holding company?
And
2
we
to
cap
3?
it at 5.
Yeah, we cap it at 5. We're kind of evaluating that. Part of it is because, well, number one, the pay down and the appreciation, right? So it's a balance of how much equity do you want sitting in an entity? Because if you've got, say, 5 properties and they've appreciated 20% in the last 2 years, all of a sudden you're getting to have quite an equity position there, and that's open to, from a liability standpoint. So we might have to pair that off and reduce the number. We're just looking at some different strategies as to how we can best protect that from a liability standpoint.
Yeah. And how do you collect your rent? Is it the same across the board? Because some people probably want to pay Venmo, some people want to write a check, some people.
Yes. So we've started direct deposits now. That's worked really well.
We've got a lot of Venmo stuff.
Yeah, Venmo's great, except there's no good way to track it.
You have to like transfer it to an account and label it properly so that you can.
Yeah, and once you get too many properties, things get cloudy real fast.
So your banks are letting you do direct deposit, they can deposit or.
Yeah,
How does
so,
that work?
How do you set up
Like, starting at the
ACH?
beginning.
Yeah.
so there's a form
From
that,
your bank?
yeah, from my bank, so I will just call, well, Brooke's bank too, but I'll call my gal at the bank and just say, hey, I need an ACH form set up for this entity and this account. And she'll go and pre-fill everything. And then all we put in is the amount, whether it's recurring, and when that amount is to be drawn. And then the account from which it is to be drawn. We enter that information or have the tenant enter it. They sign it. I send it back to our bank, and they set up the auto payment. So now, 28th of every month or 30th of every month, whatever we've decided upon with the tenant, there's that deposit. And that's really nice because there's no, oh, well, I sent the check, I don't know where it's at. Or with our Faribault ones, I don't know if anyone's ever mailed something to Faribault, but holy smokes, you think it was the moon?
And none of them have email.
Yeah, it's just a, so those are always, those checks always come in late. But it's not because they're late, it's because they sent them a couple of days before the end of the month, and I get them like 6-7 days later. So I don't know what happens down there. There's like some kind of disconnect with the post office. But that ACH, we've been implementing that on all of our new tenants. I think that's the way to go, because they can't avoid it. You can't forget, you can't.
Well, a lot of them
nothing's
don't
ever
have checks anymore, so they can't
Yeah.
write a check.
I had to fight with one guy.
I get one that pays me cash every month.
Yeah, I had a guy,
I don't
well,
like that
I
either.
pay cash. Well, dude, I ain't driving to Faribault every month to pick up your cash. If you wanna bring it here, that's fine. Well, I don't wanna do that. Okay, well then go get checks.
I think apartments.com will do the collecting as well, like they can set up ACH through them, that's where I got a couple people paying.
Yeah, a couple of
But
our,
it takes a while for you to get your money, so if they send it on the 1st, it's like the 9th before I see it.
yeah, the ACH is.
Not all banks would do that, though. I mean, I don't know, maybe that was a while ago when I had checked in, neither one of my banks would do that, so.
Yeah, our,
Maybe you can help.
yeah, we didn't have any trouble with that at all. That worked
Where you
out
at,
fine.
Lincoln?
No American Equity.
Do you try to screen out smokers?
No smoking.
No smokers?
Can't smoke anything in our properties. No crack, no ganja. no-
Dang
How
it.
about vapors who claim has not smoked?
I don't know if we have vape in there or not. I don't know if it's spelled out. We probably should.
Another chemical.
Yeah, we probably should. Yeah, the only one we've ever had problems with was our one flip where they were break in and smoke crack in our house. Whenever it rained, they'd break in so they could smoke crack in the driveway. That was fun.
Is that Minneapolis or St. Paul?
Man,
How'd you know?
first snow, we didn't keep that.
That's all
We
you
didn't
see.
keep that.
And to kind of hit on that too, so our qualifications, I had to add in the verbiage for Minneapolis, just in the event that we had somebody, because they're have their own qualifications that we have to abide by, so that's why that is so long. It went from 1 page to like 4 pages.
Yeah, together we have one left in Minneapolis, and I think you guys have one left in Minneapolis that you and Jay owned before.
Nobody wants to.
We were gonna sell, and we're just nervous about being able to 1031 into something else, so.
Jay and I have a house on 42nd and 2nd that we bought for 20,000. A while back in the day.
Like something weird, like 20,025 or something.
What's it worth now?
200.
So yeah, I don't know. I'd like to get rid of the Minneapolis one, but I don't know what I'd buy to replace it. Well, I know what I'd buy, I just don't know if I'd be able to find it. Last time we did it, we were literally on the last day of our exchange period. And we had an offer out and we were just riding this agent and the seller. And you have an hour to get back to us, or we are pulling our offer and we're going somewhere else. We got it. But I don't, no, that's not fun. Buying under pressure is not fun for investment properties.
So what is your preferred, or I guess preferred's the right word, or ideal situation for purchasing a rental property? Is it in the cities, is it in the suburbs, is it a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, is it a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, what is this? What is your like, what is that?
Yeah, so
Ideal one.
really it's strong suburbs, not Minneapolis, St. Paul. I will not buy another property in Minneapolis or St. Paul, not doing it.
Not a condo?
No, I know Jay and Brooke have one. I'm not a fan of condos. Suburbs, there areas that have school districts with good reputations. In terms of layout, we really stuck to 3-bedroom minimum for a while. With the market going the way it has, the best buys from a rental perspective lately have been the townhouses. And we've gone down to 2 bedrooms on those, and they have been dynamite.
Still an in-unit? Doesn't matter.
Can't really choose right now. If it is, awesome, but you take what you can get right now.
There's such a shortage of affordable housing and.
Yeah, I would say with the townhomes especially, if you can get one that has a tub and a shower, not just a 1.5 bath, but if you can get the two baths, that's big, especially with the 3 bedrooms, because that's going to be a little bit more oriented to a family situation, and that second shower or whatever is super valuable.
Big thing though with the townhouses is these association fees, is really checking into the associations, because I just had some condos, and some of these older condos have some major maintenance coming up. And the associations don't always disclose that, so you really want to read the meeting notes as to what's been being discussed in the last year. And that could probably be true with townhouses too, because of the fact that you're starting to get some older things that they kind of push down the road, some of the maintenance stuff.
And that's a good point. On the townhomes, I like to be able to drive through the association, and in the summer, it's really nice because you can see how it's kept, right? And you can just tell. You can tell if it's well run or not. The second you drive into it, you know. You know, it's nice. There's no crap out in the front yards. You can tell. So yeah, I mean, those are, I guess, the basics. The single family stuff, it doesn't seem to matter as much. 3-bedroom is nice there, just because it's more family oriented anyways. Other than that, like 1 bathroom doesn't seem to be anything that inhibits people, because I think the fact that it's its own structure and they have their own yard trumps everything else.
What about the fact that some of these houses only have single car garages and they don't have room to expand?
We've got 2 in Richfield like that, and those we can't.
In there, I'm thinking more out here south of the river. I mean, it's not that common to see a single car
Hastings, we don't
garage.
have a garage.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
true. Wouldn't
Sticking
have
to
fit in it
neighborhood
anyway.
standards though, right? I mean, if your neighborhood doesn't always have a garage, then you'd be
Yeah.
fine to have
Right.
one that doesn't have a garage.
yeah, but you have to
neighborhood has
remember, you have to remember too, that we're separating the buyer mentality from the
Yeah.
renter mentality.
Yeah, renters will take anything.
I mean,
They
if
just want
you've got a nice property and it's only a 1-car garage, they'd really like a second. Well, guess what, honey? You're gonna have to scrape your windows in the morning, because this house is nice. It's priced right. We can afford it. This is what we're getting. That's been my experience with it.
I love
Would prefer to
townhomes.
have 2 cars, sure, but
I
from a
love
resale
townhomes all
standpoint.
day long, just because it just minimizes my liability with siding and garage doors and the driveway. I mean, you for sure are gonna have it on a single family home. And I specifically look for ones that allow the bigger dogs.
Sure.
Because I can, especially a 3-bedroom townhome, you can rent for almost the same price as a single family home.
Yep.
And are there gonna be people that want that enclosed fence? Yeah. But I don't feel like there's ever a struggle to find a townhome renter.
Be aware, a lot of the townhome associations that were very, very open with their rental policies are tightening those up.
Yeah.
There's a wave of that happening right now. I got notice on another one. They're putting rental caps on 25%.
Or they're grandfathering in the people who have rental now and not letting any more new in.
They are, but just a heads up from the retail side of things. A lot of them are changing to a cap. So even if it says rentals are allowed, you better dig in.
Or they have to owner occupy for 2 years and
Yeah.
then they can
Yeah,
rent
there's a
it.
lot of
So-
that.
So if they, somebody gets stuck and they have to sell, can't sell.
And then they won't let you sell to another investor. That won't qualify as you. So yeah, it can be grandfathered in if they're over the limit, your property, because you were in there
Yeah.
renting it beforehand,
Right,
grandfathered in, but when you go to sell it,
it has to go to another.
if they're over that 25% cap and you go to sell it, you can't sell it to another investor and have them put a tenant in. They won't issue that rent or allow for that rental. So I'm seeing a lot of that right now.
Thank you.
Very
much.
Thank you so much. Great, lots of great people.
Do you guys have any one bedrooms?
We have a big condo in Bloomington, that's just a.
Uh-huh.
bedroom one.
I have a client who I started selling, single family and then townhouses, and then I sold him a couple, I sold him a one bedroom. And he's got
I have to call one of them first before